This episode, I'm joined by Matheus Graef. If you bought any product from MCDM in the past 5 years, you've seen his work. The Mimic Backpack Retainer, the Yumgrubs, the MCDM kobolds, radenwights, and the list just goes on. He talks about being a TTRPG illustrator, his process, and how it is to work with MCDM as an artist. I'm John Denor, and this is Goblin Points. Welcome to Goblin Points, Matheus.
Hey, happy to be here.
Introduce yourself, and also, how did you end up working with MCDM in the first place?
Okay, yeah, I'm Matheus. So I'm a fantasy artist, fantasy illustrator from Brazil, and I've been working with fantasy art like for tabletop games for over 8 years now. I think it was 2020-ish or late 2019 or something. I think it was 2020. Somewhere around there. I got my first gig for MCDM and Kingdoms in Warfare. I think it was.
Ah,
That was that was the book I that was the first book I worked on. I did like 3 or 4 illustrations. I was super stoked at the time, like to be working on something like with Matt Colville, and I was like, yeah, that was the first thing that I did, and then I went on to do Arcadia. I did like
oh,
lots of
nice.
yeah. I did like lots of interior illustration for Arcadia. It was also super fun because every issue had like super like wildly varied illustrations and monsters. You would never really know what was coming. I even did like a mimic city, mimic town or something. I don't know if you had seen that, but I did do like something that was like a mimic, like the whole town was a mimic. Anyway, it was crazy.
I know I've seen an illustration of like an alleyway that
Yeah,
is kind of trying to swallow some. Is that you?
yeah, that's mine. That's mine.
Wow,
Yeah,
I really like
yeah,
that piece. I didn't know that was you.
yeah. That's from the old days. I'm. It's like 4 years ago. But yeah, that was like that was from that time. That did like then I went to do Beast Heart for MCDM, which I did like a bunch of monsters, and that's when I think also that they were like, okay, we want like this artist to work on Flea Mortals, because I
Ah,
did I think for Beast Heart I did like 12 or something,
hmm.
and like one of my favorites is the Mimic Backpack Companion.
Yes,
Um,
I love the Mimic
yeah.
Backpack Companion.
Yeah, that was. I don't know if that came like in the briefing as is, or if they were like, just we want to see like what your take would be on a Mimic Backpack Companion. And I hope I pulled it off because I really personally like
I love
to this
I
thing.
love that. I love the Mimic Backpack Companion. It's so good.
Yeah, it was a really fun one to do, and I went to do Feathers, the classic owlbear companion, and all that in the Beast Heart, and then it was Flea Mortals, and though that was like a whole thing. I think Flea Mortals is probably the project with MCDM where I got like to do most like of designing the monsters, and
Hmm.
just that was a lot of art. I think it was over 30 monsters that I did for Flea
Wow.
Mortals. And yeah. And in the span of, I don't really remember, but it might have been 3, 4 months or something like that. So it's like relatively short, like turnout for so many pieces, right? It's like,
Hmm.
you're finishing your wave of like 10 monsters, and it's like just 10 more like on your desk, and you're like, okay, you need sketches by next week. But yeah, I mean, I've worked with Wizards of the Coast. I've worked with other companies. I would say this, like, MCDM has like really, I don't know, man. I don't know if it's the art directors or what it is, but they have really well spaced out timelines for their assignments. That's something
Oh,
I really do feel when I'm working with them. Like the flow when when you're doing like 30 monsters and you know that you're gonna have to do like more than 30 monsters for a book,
mm,
you're worried, right? You're worried that, you're not gonna be able to finish on time, or like your 10, like, because it's in batches always, right? They don't have you like do 30 at a time. That would be crazy. And so it has to be in batches. You're always like a little worried, like if you're gonna be able to do all those 10 and kind of keep like the same level of detailing, like consistency and
yeah.
whatnot, and then so yeah, I mean they do have like a finesse when it comes to like dealing with artists, and I really enjoy that about like working with them. But yeah, I mean, so worked on Flea Mortals, and then it was off to, and then at that point, I there was like this there was this shift happening. I feel like it was something that you could feel like as an artist. I wasn't like chit chatting with design or whatever
Mm,
all the time. We would touch base every now and again on certain aspects of like monsters. They would be like, oh, these work a certain way, so you need to kind of incorporate that into the design of the monster, etc. And go back and forth on that. Sometimes I would see like game design documents for specific things, but it was never something that I was like, I didn't know like what they were doing behind the scenes for some of the stuff. So but there was definitely like this shift that was happening, and I feel like it was with Flea Mortals that it became very clear that they were steering a certain direction. And there were things that, well, I felt that they didn't, there were things that they really liked about 5e.
mm.
And those were the things that mattered to them. It felt like, to me, at least. And that's that. Then, like after Flea Mortals, the MCDM RPG came along, and that, I mean, it didn't really take me by surprise, but it was like, oh, okay, and I was excited to work on that too. I was, invited to do some of the art also and do some of the concepts also. I
Ah,
specifically for the orcs, I did some concepts which I'm about to post like soon on the Drawsteel Reddit, and
nice.
it was a different approach which didn't make it,
Mm,
but
okay.
some things of it like did make it, right? The ridges on the forehead, things like that. I feel like everyone kind of touched base on that. They
Yeah.
At that point, had hired like three different artists or something to everyone like just throw a bunch of stuff at the wall and see what sticks. And so I was one of them who did concept art for the orcs. And I feel like they were like, we want to do something, that's kind of Star Trekky with like ridges on the forehead. Can you guys like try to do like something like that? And everyone kind of had the same idea. Like it felt like, and the design for the head was like there. It was something. It felt like it was something like in the overall like phlogiston of ideas, and every artist was kind of linked to that one idea, and then it was there. It just came to fruition. It had to be, but yeah. And so I work with I worked on Draw Seal. I did art for many things in the book, which I many items also, which was fun to do because I really do like working on items. I think it's an undervalued aspect of RPG books is items. Because yeah, I mean, when you look at an item, especially as a kid, and sometimes I do, I look back at when I was a kid and I was looking at these things. I was looking at my older brother's like second edition D&D books, and I was feeling really inspired by, the most like minute stuff. You really extrapolate on that stuff when you're younger.
Mm,
And so I really feel like, you know, giving attention to, small things like items, your little monsters, things like that. That's also like it's really fun, very important aspect of like RPG art, not just the epic like big scenes, but also, the smaller things. What's on like the corner of the page, all of that like kind of gives flavor and really immerses you. Anyway,
Yeah.
going off a tangent.
No, this is good. This is great. How detailed are like the orders or prompts from MCDM when they ask for a piece of art? Are they like really detailed about what they want? But it also sounds like you're kind of free to kind of experiment with your own ideas, or
Well, I mean, that kind of depends. It
okay.
depends on the subject, because when they do have like, when, for example, when I was working on the talent with all the superhero-y stuff, Grace had these very specific designs for the heroes, right? And you couldn't really like, you had to kind of stick to that kind of stuff. So for some projects they do have like a very, extensive, like I would say like an art Bible, which is
Okay.
kind of like, yeah, it's kind of like, it's not just the references, but it's things that you do have to stick with. For other subjects, they don't, or they're either like hiring me to also like further develop some of their ideas. Like for
Mm.
example, like the Time Raiders, they already had some like idea of what the Time Raiders would look like. They even had like 3D concept of like the Time Raiders, the armor, the guns, the boots, stuff like that. And they came to me with those things, and they were like, okay, so you have this, paint this in, paint these, weirdo four-armed punks from outer space. Like, and I was like, dude, hell yeah, but, answering your question, it really depends. In
Mm.
in general, they submit like a brief, which usually has what they want, and it's very direct, and when they need, they will provide like visual reference, and when it's really necessary, whether it's like for a certain like character, or it's, for specific type of monster or design that they have like in mind, like for example the Time Raiders, they will like provide like a guide for
Mm.
you. So it really depends. The kobolds, for example, the kobolds, or however you pronounce it, they were designed by Spencer Hibnick, and the text was all there, like the idea, right, was all there. But I was
Mm.
the one in charge of like actually designing them from like the scales to like if they were gonna have frills or if they were gonna have horns or how they were gonna look, if whether they were going to be like super stoic, or
Mm.
are they still gonna be like kind of, scaredy and weird little guys, so how much of weird do you want? How much of lizard? How much of dragon do you want? So for that, I was really happy to design them, because I feel like people really vibed with the final Kobold design,
They look
and
fantastic. I love the kobolds and how they turned out in Flea Mortals and now in Drosteel, which basically inherited them. I love
yeah.
the small Roman kobolds. They're so cool.
Yeah, and it's kind of I like it because there's almost like a kind of Alice in Wonderland kind of vibe about them, at least to
Oh,
me. When you
yeah.
think of like, I picture like this giant army of like tiny lizard soldiers. It's very psychedelic, if you really stop to think about it, and it's kind of terrifying because, at first it's funny, but then like they're super well organized. you know, it's not something you want to just, stumble upon on a casual stroll. But yeah, so yeah, the kobold specifically, I did put out some concept art on my art station for what they were gonna look like. We did have like there was this scale, like a slider, of like lizard to dragon, and it was
Ah,
yeah, it was like, very lizard, kind of lizard and kind of dragon, and then very dragonish, and we were playing around with that. Also, there's some unpublished art where it's like they were just geckos, right?
Oh,
They were just variations of geckos, and we hadn't really settled with the outfit. The outfit was really interesting because if you do notice, their their scale mail is actually like when they're wearing the scale, they're actually wearing stuff from the, I forgot the name of the big monster that they use, but they have a scaled monster which they use, and they're actually wearing scales from that monster, which they
oh,
repurpose for their armor. So I had to come up with something for that. So it's like a lot of stuff that you have to come up with for some assignments. For others, it's just like, oh man, I mean, I think the one of the best assignments there was, like one of the best briefings was, that monster? God, it has escaped me the name like right now. But there's a monster. It's like dumplings that they're insects.
insect.
Yeah, like it's like like little critter dumplings, and you just eat them. You can't stop eating them, and
Is it the pitlings? No, 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 not the
oh
pitlings.
no, 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 no! It's that's all from. I think that's from Flea Mortals. I don't know if it made it into Draws Deal, but I hope it did because it's such a fun idea. Anyway, they're like they look like fried dumplings, very, very, you know, very, delicious looking fried dumplings that you just can't get enough of, and they just go into your stomach and blow to death or something like that. It's kind of, yeah, I forgot the name now. But that was a really fun assignment. And they were like, oh, so these should look like six-leg fried dumplings. And maybe have like an adventurer who's like, his stomach is like fully bloated and he can't take any more of those dumplings. So they're like eating him or something like that. I
Yeah.
don't know if you remember.
I feel like there's a vague. I have a vague. Oh, I'm
Yeah.
currently paging through Flea Mortals
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
to see if I can find the. Oh,
So that's one thing, like where it's like very like creative, very picturesque kind of briefing where it's like a short sentence and you're like, yeah, I can work with this and this is amazing. So you just go and you send the stuff. So yeah, that was a long, long answer to a short question. I'm afraid of what's gonna happen when you bring in like questions from your Patreons because if I keep on this rhythm, we're not gonna get to any of them.
Well, the great thing is, you've actually ended up accidentally answering some of those questions.
Right, right.
So this is working out great for me.
Oh yeah.
One question that's been asked actually, which kind of relates to the art, the prompts you get for your art. How specific are I guess asking about MCDM specifically in all these questions, but
Yeah.
how how much do they allow for your are they very particular about kind of the style of the art, or do you get to do your own spin?
I think they look for artists that, how can I put this? They're looking for, I wouldn't say they are looking for a specific style, okay? Because you have like for example another big like amazing Brazilian artist who worked on this is Gustavo Pelissari, and he does a very specific kind of artwork where it's very much his own style, right? You have, I completely forgot the name of the person who did like the opening pages for monsters on Flea Mortals, but for the kobolds, where it's like a more Frazetta-ish, like old school fantasy. Completely
Yeah,
forgot. Yeah, so I think that they allow for the artist to come through. I would say, like, of course, they are looking for something specific, something that they're they they're not gonna hire like me, like if I'm doing something super like cartoony or whatever. But you know, It might also work out for them. I don't know. I feel like in the end, like they really do find a way to piece together all these artists in a way that really resonates with the final material. So yeah, I would say like if they like your art and if your art makes sense, if you can kind of picture it in the overall like the with everything else, I think they're okay. They're not super specific, like, oh, you need to do it in this style or whatever. No, they had never asked me, at least for any of that,
I found the picture. The yumgrubs, I'm guessing.
Yum grubs. Yeah, that's the one. Yum grubs.
Page
Yeah.
297 in Flea Mortals, if anyone listening wants to look it up.
Yeah, the Yum Grubs. That was really fun one, like really quick one, to visualize. When you
Mm.
picture like a fried dumpling with six legs, it's very easy to visualize it. So I don't know exactly who created that idea, but it's amazing. Yeah, and it's a
I
really
I honestly haven't noticed before that they actually look a bit like dumplings. I
yeah,
they,
yeah,
they look like insects, but now that you mention it, I can clearly see they're dumplings with
dumplings
legs.
exactly. Yeah. It's funny, and it's like that one I remember like clearly. It was like one sentence. That the briefing was like one sentence. It's like, young grubs are like little creatures, like look like fried dumplings with six legs, and you should picture them like you should picture they're delicious, and you should picture an adventure having like a fill of them, and can't eat anymore or whatever. It was like very 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 short briefing, you know.
This is one from this is a question from a patron, which asks basically if you've gotten feedback on an art piece that pushes it in a direction you didn't expect.
Yeah. And I mean, this is always something that I feel like, and this is a tip for other artists in general. I feel like,
Hmm.
because sometimes you as an artist, I feel like this is a job that can get very you can get very like enamored with an idea because it springs out from your mind, and you want it to work, but sometimes it doesn't work. And it's something that you pick up as you have more and more years of working with art directors and stuff like that, when they're just like, you need to push this a certain way. You just learn to say yes. There's kind of a subtle dance, of course, of like, if you really believe in an idea,
Hmm.
you will try to incorporate that into the design, but at the same time you want to respect the vision of your client. Like, that's just how it works.
Yeah.
So answering the question, yeah, absolutely. There have been times like I you know I would say, like, for designing monsters, it's always like something where they're like, we want this to be a certain way. This doesn't look a certain way, or maybe you could try this instead. And it does, like, generally it turns out like amazing. Like, no wonder they're art directors, right? They're just right. So yeah, they do like have a way to bring like the piece to a certain place, and they have it in their minds, and it's kind of very much like you're both. It's crazy. Like, when you're working with art in a certain way, it's like you're trying to sculpt something with your mind with the other person,
Hmm.
and and they're like, no, you just you need to do it like this, and they kind of at some points they do like come in and do like draw over the art, kind of to give you a vague sense of what they want.
Oh.
But sometimes they do have they do simply say like, what if you tried this? And whenever MCDM has done this before, they're always very courteous, because I don't I'm trying to I'm trying to remember specifically one time they asked me, I think it was twice or thrice, to take something in a different direction. And
Hmm.
every time they did, they were very courteous, because they understood that I was putting a lot of work in there. Oh, yeah. It was for Draw Steel, for the Hakan, the stone people.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So for that, they were experimenting, and as I was, doing the illustration, they were having these different ideas, and so they wanted to experiment with certain things. I think at the beginning the Hakan were very much like very stone people, like
Hmm.
they looked like statues, and so the more gentle features started to come along with the as I was working on the piece. It wasn't something that we intended with originally, right?
Huh.
So yeah, there's absolutely times when it does happen, and there's also times when I, bring something to them that they were not expecting, and we kind of, they think, oh well, that works really well. Let's go with that, you know. So yeah, it happens on both sides, for sure.
Interesting. that it fascinates me with the Hakan because I remember I've been paying attention to development since the beginning of Draw Steel, and when I feel like I remember them being explained by Matt as basically like stone people, but I feel like they lost the hardest part of the stone maybe and for the final design. So you're saying that they started out did they start out basically like statues and kind of work their way into something more organic?
Yeah, 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 for sure. Yeah, for sure. They were very, and I think in the beginning it was very like Sumerian-ish, kind of his statues, and the features were very much carved. They looked
Oh.
very carved, which like between you and me, I think was really cool. I really enjoy that, But yeah, they were very much like carved. Like you would see like the features carved. Like they didn't even like have eyelids proper,
Huh.
or like irises. They were like just very much this statue, and
Wow.
as we progressed they were like they kind of took it in different directions and whatnot. So that's what happened with the Hakan specifically, right?
Hmm.
Can we try this? Can we try that? For the Time Raiders, I'm just trying to like remember certain things. Time Raiders, I don't know. Yeah, Time Raiders was a done thing. It was like, yeah, Time Raiders, do the Time Raiders. They had this design in mind, and it was like,
Right.
just quickly done. You know, the idea was like super like well designed from the get go. They already had a very concrete idea of what they wanted, right?
Right.
Whereas for others, it's like the Raven Whites, for example, the
Hmm.
rats. Those I think I designed like them. I don't know if they had like a two like drawings of what they had in mind, and they kind of say go wild with this, and so I kind of did, and so I the spun off in different directions. So okay, so what if you have a white hamster, kind of looking one, right? Or what if you have like a fluffy one that's more cutesy, or what if you have, so what directions can you take this, and what works and what doesn't,
Hmm.
and yeah,
I'm such a fan of the radenwights, their design in Draw Steel, and especially I recently directed Draw Steel for a few people at a con, and
nice.
they encounter a band of a radenwight, and they're like, "Oh, rat people, I don't know about this," and then I pull up the like the cover image of the monster band section of the radenwights with the maestro and everything, and I'm like, no, they're like this. And they go, oh, that's cool.
Yeah, the maestro. Yeah, the maestro. Oh man. Oh yeah. Yeah, it's fun. Like I for the maestro, I wanted to do like a kind of you can kind of see it in the hair of the maestro, like a Beethoven kind of vibe going on. If you
Fantastic.
notice it, yeah.
I think I'm coming to realize that I think I really like your art.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
I didn't even realize how many of the pieces that I actually remember that it turns out to be your pieces.
Yeah, there's like lots of pieces that I did do for like MCDM like over the years, and I
Hmm.
think that they ended up reusing some stuff from the past. So in the end, like in the final book of Draw Steel, there's even more stuff, right? That sometimes I even forget that I did. I'll be flipping through stuff and I'll be like, wait, I think I did this. Like, yeah.
When you're working on these pieces, in some cases, as you say, they have like a very specific vision of what they want, like the time raiders. But when
Mhm.
it's when it, you're when the description is more vague, do you have like a process that you use to kind of figure out how to even begin on something that's very like nebulous?
Yeah. Well, okay. So when you're working on with a new client, this is tricky, right? Because
Mm,
you need to find your footing, and then I feel like there's something very specific with working with MCDM at this point. I've worked with them for years, so I know like what they're looking for in general, and so I know what direction to take nowadays. I feel like I've been eased into this also from all the working with on Arcadia, on what I would call like now smaller projects. Not to like say that Arcadia wasn't like an amazing thing with so many talent involved, but it was
mm,
like compared to Draw Steel, where it's like a very concise thing. And so like I've been eased into like working with them and figuring out their language and whatnot. When I receive something that I have no idea where to start with, and they have like they don't have like a very clear visual reference or whatever, or it's like vague, like the yumgrubs, for example, I have to resort to winging it, right? And I feel like when I it's true, and you kind of on the sketches, that's when you kind of have that's one of the fun parts is just going bonkers, going absolutely like just you get all these ideas when you read something and you're like, okay, well, just gonna put all of these into sketch form and see what sticks. But of course, as I said, like as you work with a client long enough, you begin to understand and get a feel for what they want. And especially like MCDM, which has like these specific art directors, and I've been working with them for specifically 4 years now. It's different when you're working with, for example, someone like Wizards of the Coast, who has like a huge roster of art directors. As you work with certain art directors, you start getting a feel for those specifically. So whenever you receive like
right.
commissions from them, you're like, okay, so I understand that this person likes more of a creepy, kind of vibe. This person likes more of a narrative vibe. So you give to them what you understand. So that's
Mm.
kind of where I go, where I start with. But yeah, answering your question, when it's a new client, dude, I don't know. You feel like you jumped off and you have no parachute, and it's just like find a way to stay alive. It is how it is.
Well, you talked a bit about how you got started with MCDM back in the day through what was the name? Constant. Oh,
Conceptopolis.
right, that one.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because I've got a question from the Dice Society, who's a fellow Brazilian,
Yep.
who asks how does Latin American artists break into this space? Is there any like particular challenges you feel like you faced because of where you're located in the world?
Listen, I think that there are good things and bad things, and let's see how we can answer this. Because the way that I feel like Brazilians can break through is like there's a language barrier, obviously.
Sure.
And there is like a huge barrier when it comes to conventions, right? Because I feel
Right.
like one way that artists in the United States or the other countries, I don't know what the scene is like in Europe, but I feel like in the United States people do know each other, and they know each
Mm,
other personally, and they meet with creators, they meet with content creators, and people do there's like a group of people, and And it's that can be really hard to break into because those people
Mm.
know each other personally from conventions. Every conventions, Gen Con or Magic Con or whatever, those people are meeting up and chatting. And how can a Brazilian break into that? I don't know. Personally, I don't know. Like there are events. There's like again, Gustavo Pelizari, he has, I don't know, a Discord where he talks to, artists, and people can actually kind of reach out to him. And he's someone who's worked with, MCDM. He's worked with his artwork on the Marvel card game. He's now working with Magic the Gathering also. So he's someone who you can reach out to and be there. And I would say like one way is to be there, right? You need
Mm.
to connect. The most important thing about being like an illustrator and being like, if you want to work with whatever, WotC or MCDM or whatever, you need to connect with people. Like
Mm.
there's no way you're going to do this if you don't connect with people and you're not there, again. So it is harder for Brazilians in that sense. It's not just the language barrier, it is the conventions, it is not being close to these big clients that are not from your country that you want to work with.
Yeah.
Not seeing them face to face, it definitely has a big impact on that. But one way you can do that is by trying to, of course, have some common sense, right? Just don't go trying to insert yourself into people's lives. But
Sure.
you need you need to network. You need to create connections. It's very important. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the help of other artists. And like, I'm not like ashamed to say that,
Mm.
the only reason I'm doing Magic the Gathering cards is because of Bruce Bernays, who is another artist who works for Magic. He was kind enough to introduce me to people. So
Ah.
you need to be very savvy about seeing where these opportunities are. And this is something that just comes with experience. It is experience. You need to start somewhere, and you need to understand that where your skill level is also.
Mm.
If you're someone who you understand that your work is not on par with what's being published by certain clients, you need to look for where your work is being published, like something of your skill level is being published, and you need to be on the radar of those people. And as you work, you get better. And then at some point, it will happen. But it will take years. And I think that's an important thing that you can't avoid.
Yeah.
It will take years.
You just have to bide your time and work on it, I guess.
Yeah, I suppose. There's no like secret formula or anything.
Yeah.
It's just be honest and be professional. But in a way, like, yeah, absolutely. Like Brazilians do suffer a lot from the, I wouldn't say, yeah, pay maybe like lack of opportunity or whatever, but it's just
Mm.
like the language barrier and
Yeah.
everything, like, and like the social economic situation of like, it's not something that people can just go out of their way to try and tackle on this kind of work. you
Mm.
know it is demanding, but it is something that you can work on at your own time. And I feel like at the end of the day, it's always going to be something valuable because you'll be picking up a new skill, and it might come in handy, it might not. I think that people should follow what, if this is in your heart, and you should follow it, right? That's what I
Mm.
think.
And speaking of following your heart, I briefly at least want to touch on something you mentioned, and I know my first notice of it was when the Dice Society posted about it on Blue Sky, which is you're working on your own TTRPG.
Oh yeah.
And you also mentioned it when we talked both before this recording, and also when we were just messaging each other. So give us a introduction to what you're working on with your RPG.
Sure. Yeah. I'm working on Omniosures. It's a weird fantasy RPG, and it's a classless, levelless game with a fail for XP progression. So every time you fail a roll, you gain 1 XP, and when you reach 7 XP, you increase that skill. And that's how you gain your feats, and that's how you progress your character, right? But I feel like the big thing, other than the mechanics, which some are very in tune with, like what, for example, Draw Steel goes for, which is kind of to break some shackles of like, oh, so you roll, you miss. Oh my God. So you got to wait for your turn to come around again. So, I have my own way where I deal with that kind of conundrum. But it's like a very weird fantasy RPG. It's like a setting, if you like 70s Star Wars, Morrowind, Planescape, you will like this, right? So
Okay.
for example, yeah, like the dwarves. The dwarves are made of metal, and what that means is that as they age, they become green with patina, and as they die, they are traditionally smelted to be passed on as family heirlooms, right? So like as weapons and armor, you know. So if you're literally a dwarf made of metal, and that's something that I really wanted for this, is like to make every lineage very much like you are what you are, what it says you are. If you're a dwarf made of metal, like swords will dent you, and you will like be able to jump off a rooftop, and just if you fall like on somebody, it's a game over for them. There are the lizards who are literal like sentient like Komodo dragons, and you can climb on walls, you can, eat rotten food, you can, do all the crazy stuff a lizard can, but also you're cold-blooded, so you need like a source of warmth to get to the days, you know. And then like there's a personal favorite, which is the gnomes. They're like very, very small, and you know how all gnomes wear hats, like, right? This is like a
Yeah.
trademark thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So in Omiosudas, the gnomes need to wear those hats, because if they don't, if they go without a hat for 7 days, they become a goblin, right? And yeah. And so every gnome is like at least like a couple hundred years old. This is something that's written in the book. So
Hmm.
their lifespan, I just don't explain it. It's like every gnome is at least a couple hundred years old, and they go to live on for so long that humans don't know how much they live on for. So,
Ah.
it's just, so this is just something, yeah, it's that kind of vibe. And so you take all this weird fantasy stuff and you put it in the world of like 70s Star Wars, Morrowind-ish stuff, Planescape, and that's Omniusudis pretty much. Then you have all the mechanics, which are really fun. The fail for XP gives you a very organic character progression. So your
Hmm.
character can start out as someone who rides a wagon, and 2 sessions in, you could have picked up so many skills from failing to, conduct your caravan, that now you can buy a feat to have an animal companion or something like that. So, oh, suddenly you're a ranger now, you know. So that's kind of how it flows.
And if I remember correctly, you also, some of the original concepts you did for the orcs for MCDM, some of those ideas kind of trickled
Yeah.
into the orcs for your game.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And this is something that I'm gonna post. Yeah, I'm gonna do the post on Reddit after this interview. And you can, if you want, you can put it on the description or something. But absolutely, it trickled in. It like for MCDM, I kind of wanted to do something, because at the time I was very much like kind of enamored with Bronze Age, the like just Bronze Age design of armor and things like that. And I felt
Mm.
like, maybe the MCDM orcs could, kind of go in that direction. I don't know. So I pitched that idea and made some very specific designs. But at the end, that didn't catch. What really caught was the ridges on the foreheads and like the overall
Yeah.
attitude. But so those were very Bronze Age themed, and so I just it was stored in my mind shelves like somewhere. And as I was working on my setting, that just came back to me, and it came back with those orcs riding hippos, you know. So there's an illustration of those orcs, and I thought that the hippo was an amazing mount for that kind of orcs. So you have these Bronze Age kind of looking orcs, they're riding hippos, and yeah, it's crazy to think that that came from, from something that I did, for MCDM for sure,
That's fantastic. I mean, I haven't really thought of hippos as mounts, but they look very sturdy, and I know they're really fast. So, to
Yeah.
some degree, they do really fit like a mount.
Yeah, they fit like a perfect orc mount too. If you picture orcs, like, I don't know, they have the tusks, the hippos have like the big, it's like
Yes.
it just fits really well. And I can almost like envision this very serene, quiet lake, right?
Hmm.
And like a swampish lake. And then all of a sudden, like these hippo mounts, like the riders just start like slushing out of the water with their mounts, like an ambush. I would not want to be there, But it is very, it's a really cool scene that I had in my head with the hippo mounts, and yeah, it's an amphibious mount also, which is interesting.
True. That's brilliant. We're coming up on the hour and reaching the end
Oh.
of our time. And I always ask my guests to bring some kind of recommendation that they want people to either check out or be aware of. So, what have you brought for our listeners?
Well, I've brought Torqueborg, which is by a friend of mine who's an art director of Ghostfire, actually, Ghostfire Gaming,
Ah,
with, yeah. So he's got his own project right now, and I would really want people to check out, which is Torqueborg, which is a post-apocalyptic powered by Morkborg, and it's set in like a radioactive wasteland, and it has a very, very, very tight art direction. So yeah,
hmm.
that's my recommendation. And also, of course, if you want to check out Omiosutis, I I wouldn't, you know, suggest against it. But yeah.
Oh, actually, this is kind of not where I'm supposed to ask this, but it doesn't follow the structure of my interviews. But I noticed on your on your like website that
Hmm.
in addition to your RPG, you had like a setting thing. I think.
Hey, let's start to Karamuska. Yeah. So
Sure.
yeah, that's actually it's a setting booklet for Omiosutis. So if you go
Yeah.
on the Omiosutis like itch.io, you actually be able to get all that for, pay what you like. You can get it for free, all the PDFs. So it's the main book and the setting booklet and the adventure module, which takes place in that city from the setting booklet. So yeah,
Ah,
those
interesting.
are the yeah, and it can be read as is. Like it doesn't have to be like a setting booklet. It is more of like a guide to a certain city. So it's like a
Right.
fantasy city, and it's Karamuska is a city that's underground. It's like an underground Las Vegas, and the stars are full of the skies are full of stars, and the stars are like emeralds and gems and whatnot, encrusted upon the underground skies. And people migrate to this city in hopes of an earthquake, so the stars will fall upon their porches. So that's the city.
Fantastic. I love that idea.
Yeah. And it's got a lot more going for it, but that's the short of it.
Wow, it has been a great honor and even greater pleasure to have you on. This has been really great.
No, man, it's been really fun. I mean, I love talking about, working with MCM. If any artist gets a chance to work with them, like they are one of the finest people, okay, in the TTRPG space right now. If you get a job for them, it's like a godsend. They're really, really fun to work with.
Wow, the highest praise.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you so much, Mateus, for coming on. It was a blast. And as the interview went along, I realized just how much of Mateus's art I've loved in MCDM's products. And I said so in the interview too. I think the portfolio on his website undersells the great work he's done. I want to thank Ananam, Shuvrak Roy, Anton Carmola, Foxtrick, and the Dice Society for submitting questions for Matheus. If you want to be featured on Goblin Points or know of someone else who should be, leave a comment on YouTube or Spotify or send me an email on tips@goblinpoints.com. Links to everything, including this script, can be found in the show notes and on goblinpoints.com. If you want to support my work, you can become a Patreon supporter. As a paying member, you can submit questions for upcoming guests. You also get access to premium features on Stall. Stall is a digital toolset for playing and running Draw Steel, digital hero sheets, looking up monsters, or read the core rules. Go to stall.app, STAWL.app. Next episode is on the 5th. That's going to be the news roundup for December. See you next time. Snakkes!